G'day mates, it's the Doctor here, and you may not have been aware, but there is a new Wallace and Gromit movie. As you might have noticed in my videos, I've made references to them because I am a massive fan of the pair. And I was curious to learn how this movie would play out. The trailer was promising, but Chicken Run 2, in my honest opinion, is a bad movie. Not a cataclysmic disaster like a lot of recent movies, but really disappointing for an Aardman film. So how was this one released 1 year later? Brilliant! It has got all the Wallace and Gromit charm you have come to know, the visual gags, the wordplay, the darker tone. Because Wallace and Gromit have always had a threatening undertone, and this movie captures that vibe to a T. The story, without spoilers, follows Wallace, who invents a smart gnome, but behind bars, feathers McGraw from the wrong trousers, corrupts its programming and turns the gnome evil. But he doesn't break out of prison for a long time. We spend a lot of time with Gromit, who is suspicious of the gnomes, and the police investigating Wallace. That's not to say this movie has bad pacing, because it was hilarious from start to finish. I know people have been dunking on Disney for falsely reporting Mufasa as the #1 movie in the world, when Sonic 3 is running circles around it. But Sonic 3 also markets itself as the funniest movie of the year, and ooh, that's some real competition. Vengeance Most Fowl had me crying of laughter numerous times. I might have been laughing more at the creativity than the actual jokes, but gosh dang, this was the funniest movie of the year. Everyone in the cinema was laughing, my father was laughing. This movie was sheer delight. It's also the most continuity-focused Wallace and Gromit story. There are references to past stories like most notably The Wrong Trousers, but also A Close Shave, A Grand Day Out, and Curse of the Were-Rabbit with Officer McIntosh, who has been promoted as Chief. Good for him. I do think the references were handled very cleverly, because this is a franchise that's not known for following past events in their stories, and aside from The Wrong Trousers, it's not overly reliant on member berries. Sadly for some, there is no reference to a Maddo Loaf and Death, at least none that I could find. I remember people commenting under the trailers, "Where's Snuffles?" I'm convinced Vengeance Most Foul does not take place after that one, so whether that is a pro or a con is entirely up to you. It does change the context of a previous story, specifically The Wrong Trousers, but unlike Chicken Run 2, when that movie changed the context of the ending to the original film, this one handles its retcon much better. I won't spoil it, but it was set up early on in the movie, and when it comes to that resolution, I thought it was so clever and extremely funny. If you're not into character deconstruction, like the best movie ever made, Man of Steel, you might not like this one because it takes Wallace's character in a direction we've never seen before. Again, without spoilers, I really welcomed this idea, which I wonder was purposely played into its thematic elements, like living with machines, or machines replacing hard workers. Part of the reason I was excited for this movie is because Wallace and Gromit have dealt with romance like 3 times, and there's not that many stories with them. I have yearned for its early days before Wallace chasing love, because we know he's not going to get the girl in the end, and thankfully, there was none of that in this movie. Though I've come to notice another trope in Wallace and Gromit's stories, where Wallace makes an invention, Gromit is jealous and dislikes it, but I think Nick Park, the creator, was aware of this formula, and wanted to deliver a unique spin with a heartfelt scene between the inventor and his dog. As the voice of Wallace is now played by Ben Whitehead, taking over from Peter Sallis, the original voice, he has come a long way since his early days like Grand Adventures by Telltale Games. I even asked my father if he noticed any difference, and he didn't, which is a really good sign. I greatly respect Nick Park and the rest of Aardman for casting an actor to represent the character as opposed to their celebrity status like the Mario movie. This guy does as good of an impersonation of Peter Sallis as you can get. Rest his soul. The movie is very authentic to its time period, like a British town with an inventor creating machines that's not like the gadgets and gizmos of today. Yeah, the smart gnome is a play on smartphone, but it still uses telephone cords, cube-shaped computer monitors, and though it has pop culture references like Pirates of the Caribbean 2 and Aliens, it doesn't feel out of place in context of the scenes. There's no memes or current year issues that have already dated other movies of the past 10 years. Vengeance Most Foul is going to age gracefully. Mark my words. As for the animation, what more can you say? The stop motion is top notch, the characters without lips are perfectly expressive. Though I noticed the water and other fluids were much smoother. Like, too smooth to be stop motion. And it's not a nitpick, but watch this scene. You see how much motion there was on Gromit while the gnome remained in place? That was a perfectly animated shot. Yet towards the end of the movie, when the gnomes are shaking each other's hands, there was a lot rougher and probably used motion blur to cover it up. It's like, you got it right before, what happened then? The last thing I want to mention is regarding the new officer recruit, Makashi, the Indian woman from the trailers. Discourse around DEI has been ruined by both sides, the woke and the anti-woke crowd. To take a page from the Aardman, what woke has become to those on the far right is what people on the far left use to discriminate other people. It has been overused. That doesn't mean it does not exist. When it becomes a problem is when DEI hijacks the narrative for the sake of agenda. Calling something woke because it has women in it or people of color is not woke. And it is a shame that sort of alarm system has been implemented into our consciousness, because those who push it have ruined the authenticity for the people they want to represent. I want to see Croatian representation, but not if they're going to be portrayed poorly. Vengeance Most Foul has a notable number of people of color, and they don't deduct points from the film. Makashi was handled well in the movie. She isn't condescending as she wants to help others. She's not a girl boss as she gets hurt. She isn't the smartest tool as she makes mistakes. And while far from the funniest thing in the movie, she still got some laughs out of me. There is one joke during the end credits where they're showing all these photos. There's one of her in black and white where she was the only person of color in a police academy. I could not believe I saw that in a modern movie, but that was amazing! Some believe stereotyping is offensive, but it's more like a double-edged sword where it can be, but at the same time, how are you supposed to acknowledge their traits? This is a comedy after all. They even make fun of Officer McIntosh's peculiar-shaped head. Spoilers, she doesn't save the day. It's a Wallace and Gromit movie and they are the center of the story. I think I might give Vengeance Most Foul a 10 out of 10. There are very few problems with it. It's Wallace and Gromit as they've always been, no redundant romance, the story was engaging and heartwarming, comedy gold, stop motion is top notch, though I think they use CGI for the water. And I will have to think where I place Vengeance Most Foul among other Wallace and Gromit stories. If you have seen Vengeance Most Foul, let me know what you think. And if you want me to do more movie reviews for the channel. Until next time, take care mates, Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year!